Mysterious celestial phenomena, strange light over Greece from the years of the fall of Constantinople until today, and eyewitness accounts. And let's remember that it was the Byzantine Empire that was established as a free Christian faith location by King Constantine in about 325 AD. And he even built palaces for kings and queens and princesses to relocate there. And it's that little purple strip at the 1 o'clock position, is Constantinople right there, that fell in on May 29, 1453. The Ottoman Empire expanded and took most of not only Constantinople, but even Europe after that. I think Albania was the last country of Europe to fall. But what happened with these strange sightings having to do with the sun, moon, and stars, and lights, and splitting of lights, and very strange phenomena that were signs in the skies. And this is by a General Kardamitsis, and also witness accounts that were documented and noted down for historical reasons at the time of the siege of Constantinople. And it was taken by the 18-year-old Muhammad. His mother, by the way, was Christian Orthodox. And it was she who asked him to cover with plaster all the frescoes, the mosaics of the Church of Holy Wisdom, Saint Sophia of Constantinople. And that's why they are in such perfect condition even today. The plaster is slowly being removed, and the murals are just beautiful. Now, what happened? For about 30 years, a strange light of several kilometers had been appearing in the sky of Greece. Most of the time, it's in the sky of northeastern Greece, and in at least 2 years, it has become brighter, especially in July 2019, he says. So what's going on? From the ground, it's not very visible, but it's quite visible from satellites and planes, politically, and of the armed forces. It's also existed in the middle of the 15th century during the Byzantine era in northeast Greece. So it existed in the 15th century, and it's also happening now. Then it mysteriously disappeared overnight, only to reappear at the end of the 20th century. And this is a picture of it. So he says, I will try to explain what is happening since I first mentioned facts from the time of the fall of Constantinople. That was the siege of Constantinople in May 1453, and about this quote-unquote strange light. Now, what's been recorded? Divine signs in 1453 in Istanbul. Istanbul is a short for Constantinople. Istinboli, meaning at the city. Shortly before the conquest of Constantinople, city or queen, by the Ottoman Turks, strange places appeared in the city and in the sky. Strange things appeared in the city and in the sky. Although it was May 22nd, 1453, that's a week before the fall, the city was covered by a strangely dense layer of fog. The eerie atmosphere further intensified the bad mood of the inhabitants, mainly likened this event to the corresponding darkness of the hour of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now let's remember, I have been to Istanbul 3 times. There's a very, very strange pink light over the city. Pink. You know, maybe it has to do with the pollution. I don't know. The air pollution. I don't know. But all 3 times that I've gone there, and also when you see ancient pictures, ancient paintings of Constantinople, there's this very strange, mysterious pink haze everywhere. So whoever's gone, if anyone has gone, please tell me. You must have seen it. Now, shortly before the conquest of the city, strange things were appearing in the city and the sky. Although it was May 22nd, 1453, the city was covered by a strange dense layer of fog, and the eerie atmosphere further intensified the bad mood of all the inhabitants, Many liken this event to the corresponding darkness of the hour of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The same night, another strange and inexplicable phenomenon was observed in the sky. The atmosphere was clean and clear. The moon, while normally supposed to show a full moon, showed only 3 days of a moon, like a new moon. This phenomenon lasted for about 4 hours and panicked the people of the city. Towards the evening of the same day, another strange event took place. At first, it seemed something like a mysterious light enveloping the whole city. In other words, it was as if the enemy was mentally burning Constantinople and its inhabitants saw it. Thus, this unprecedented light focused on the passage just above the dome of the Church of the Holy Wisdom, Hagia Sophia, in favor of the eternal Orthodox symbol of the universe throughout the centuries. Eyewitness Nestor Iskander described in writing what he saw. Okay, this is like a 500-year-old note of what he saw. Quote, "At the top of the windows, a large flame came out and surrounded the dome of the church for quite some time. Soon after, it flew into the sky. Those who saw the phenomenon became numb and began to mourn and shout in Greek, 'Lord, have mercy.' The light itself ascended to heaven," end quote. Now, of course, from the dome going up into the sky, what happened? Did the Holy Spirit leave the Holy of Holies? That's where the Holy Liturgy takes place. Now, historians and eyewitness Francis states, again, it's a 500-year-old noting, witnessing, quote, "Light shining from heaven and shining on it all night long," end quote. This different light first appeared on Good Friday, March 30th, 1453, during the procession of the epitaph. On that day, Muhammad's army had already approached the surrounding hills behind the Bosphorus, and part of it was advancing towards the Thracian plain. This unknown celestial and unexplained light spread its radiance over the Queen City, Constantinople, as if it somehow covered it. Then this light stood just above the Church of Holy Wisdom and stayed there all night. This unprecedented event continued throughout the days of the siege. On Saturday, May 26th, that's 3 days before the fall, the heavenly light came down again at the same time and stood over the Church of Hagia Sophia, Holy Wisdom. It was then slowly dispersed, and then it was lost. And then, quote, "great darkness," end quote, covered everything, and great terror overflowed into the souls of of course, they were Romans, Romyi. Even though they spoke Greek. Let's remember that King Constantine, who established the city there in Byzantium, was from Rome, okay, from the Roman Empire. Now, all the inhabitants of the city fell deep inside them, as if something unprecedented was reaching everyone from the great and forthcoming wrath of the triune God. The time to pay for their general apostasy from God had approached, and it was now so close, and all of them felt it, according to their faith in their souls, end quote. In the other camp of the Ottomans, that night and before this unknown and supernatural light was scattered and lost, Muhammad had almost made his decision to end the siege of the city and leave. The main reason? For 43 days of fierce mobilizations and struggles, nothing could be done by his army to defeat the city's defenders. In other words, Muhammad did not see the inhabitants of the God-keeper bend, and he thought very seriously of a regular retreat and a time respite for his also afflicted army. The truth, of course, was that Muhammad, above all, was afraid of this inexplicable and glorious light. In other words, he was afraid of the miracle. In other words, he feared the living God of the Greco-Romans. Let's remember his mother was Greek Orthodox. Now, in fact, on the night of May 26, the Sultan had called all his prophets to give him a relevant explanation regarding what this unprecedented unknown light means. As George Francis writes verbatim, again, George Francis, 500-year-old notes, Muhammad was thinking, "Oh, on tomorrow you will rise and solve the siege." End quote. However, just as they were deciding to break the siege and leave, they looked up at the sky, and that heavenly light was scattered. They were slowly disappearing, and darkness was slowly covering the city. So the light was scattering, it left the city. When Muhammad saw that the light was fading at the time, he immediately decided to continue the siege. He himself followed the divine sign in his loss. He read correctly that the loss of the indescribable light above the city was equivalent to the removal of the divine grace to the Romans and their lands. On the night of Monday, 28th, 1453, that's the eve of the fall, Emperor Constantine Palaiologos was the protagonist he's the emperor of the city. He was the protagonist of the last moving and critical scenes that took place in Theophylactis of Constantinople. Outside the city walls, the voices and altercations of the infidels resembled the roar of a stormy sea, made the besieged realize that the general attack would take place the next day, as it did. At the urging of the emperor, priests holding crosses, icons, and banners led the women and children to another procession around the walls, all begging the triune God not to hand them over to the enemy. In addition, Palaiologos convened the lords, the mayors, the centurions, the soldiers, and the people, and he also performed a sacrament, a divine service. Then he himself, in modest words, full of humility, addressed his soldiers and, among other things, said the following words to them. Quote, "You know very well, my brothers, that we have 4 things to fight to the death. First, for our faith and religion. Second, for our country. Third, for our king, the representative of the Lord. And fourth, for our relatives and friends. Well, my brethren, if we have to fight to the death for one of them 4 ideals, we must be much more willing to give our lives for all 4 together." End quote. And the next day the city was taken. The diary wrote, Tuesday, May 29, 1453. The theories. Ceremonies of invocation of the patron saint of the city, ritual magic, extraterrestrial intervention, ascension of souls to heaven, Monday presence, northern lights of reflection, and much more were said from time to time in the efforts of free researchers, psychologists, astrologers, and various scientists having to explain the appearance of this light. However, even the fact itself was disputed without having specific historical references. What really happened in those days is known only to the people who lived them. But the secret, if it is considered a secret, they took with them. For us, all they left are scattered reports, glorious memories, and a plethora of folk legends and traditions. Romania, Byzantium. One remark, the Eastern Roman state was never named Byzantium. The Byzantine state in ancient time was a colony of the mansions of Attica. The Roman Emperor Constantine the Great named the city he built in Byzantium the Second Rome, capital of the Eastern Roman state. Later, the state was named Romania. The name of the state Byzantium was first given arbitrarily in 5057 by a German historian, philologist Hieronymus Wolff, and since then it has remained until today. And let me mention some facts of the siege of Istanbul, as many, especially today's youth, are unaware of them. The Eastern Roman state Romania was already weakened and divided in the last 2 centuries, a shadow of the old empire. The fall of 1204 by the Crusaders, and later, after its recapture in 1261, political and religious disputes, the inability to help from the West, the poor economic situation, and the flight of human resources led to the gradual weakening and shrinking. For the next 2 centuries, the weakened empire was constantly attacked by Latinos, Serbs, Bulgarians, especially by the Ottoman Turks, and the occupation of Gallipoli in 1354 by the Ottomans, which brought hordes of fanatical Muslims to Europe, gradually encircled the shrunken Romania, which in 1373 became the territory of the Ottoman Sultan. In 1439, a meeting was held in Florence, Italy, to unite Catholics and Orthodox. The Orthodox accepted the universal doctrine that the Holy Spirit proceeds from God the Son and God the Father, and also recognized the primacy of papacy. In return, the Pope would send 2 war triremes and 300 soldiers to defend Constantinople. Arriving in Constantinople February 1st, 1440, the people and the clergy strongly disapproved of the delegation. George Gennadius Scholarius, the brother of the Emperor of John Epipaleologos, refusing the union, staged the coup with the help of the Turks to take power into his own hands. So you can understand the squabbles that were going on. Now the union, quote unquote, was finally formalized a few months before the fall, following strong pressure from the West by the last emperor Constantine Paleologos, who ascended the throne in 1449, who for this reason had not appointed a patriarch. In 1453, in addition to Constantinople and its environs, the largest part of the Peloponnese, with its focus on Mistras, belonged to the empire. The rest of the empire had been conquered by the Ottomans. On April 6, 1453, Sultan Muhammad II besieged Constantinople, the city, with 150,000 troops, according to others with only 49,000 troops. The Emperor Constantine Paleologos made generous efforts to save from the empire as much as possible. He was distinguished as a character for his energy and bravery, so he forced to turn to the West for help. Eventually, serious military reinforcements never arrived to the city. Instead of military aid, a cardinal of Greek origin, Isidore, who had previously taken part in the Florence summit, arrived. Isidore also performed a service in the Church of Holy Wisdom, but this event caused great unrest among the population of the city. Regarding the army of the defenders, the report of the historian Francis is considered more valid. Francis, of course, 500 years ago, who undertook the counting of forces in the orders of the emperor. Francis mentions 4,937 armed defenders of the city and about 2,000 foreigners. The 700 barricaded soldiers who arrived in the city in June 1453 with 2 Genoese ships stood out from the foreigners. Constantine conferred on their leader John Justinian Longo, an experienced warrior, the title of commander-in-chief, and assigned him the defense of the city. In any case, the total number should not exceed 8,500. The city fell May 29, 1453. The fall of Constantinople also marked the end of the millennial Byzantine Empire. The fact of the fall of the city, Guardian, quote-unquote, left deep traces in the sources of time. The fall came as a natural result of the uninterrupted expansion of the Ottoman Empire or the wider region. The clashes were particularly unequal in favor of the Turks, to the point that the sources mentioned the accomplishment of the siege. Special mention is made of the heroism of a portion of the besieged, and especially of the emperor. The fact that the fall of the city, the guardian of the city, left the deep traces in the wounds of the time, as most of the people were rejuvenated and refused to fight against the Turks. An example of this situation were the elderly conscripts who fell asleep and became monks in the monasteries, while in the streets of the siege of Constantinople there were riots, insults, looting, and murders, and the anti-Semites disregarded the city. For example, one of the most important Byzantine generals of the Emperor Lucas Notaras said, "Cretoter estin" is seen in the middle of the city, a king of the Turks or a Latin cover. That is, better to see in the middle of the city a Turkish Sakiri reigns than a Latin tiara, unquote. Immediately after the fall, Muhammad himself appointed the Anthenotic Patriarch under imperial hostility. To be precise, he chose as a new ecumenical patriarch the leader of the Anthenotic monk Gennadius, world-famous George Scholarius. In modern times, the strange light that appeared in 1453 visited us again. It has been appearing in various parts of our country for 30 years. other times like a second sun, and other times like a bright white big cloud. Also from 2012 onwards, strange suns, quote unquote, have appeared in many parts of Greece. Strange suns? I saw one just a few weeks ago. When we had that red sky phenomenon also in China. I saw, I was picking up the priest from it was Sunday morning. I was picking up the priest and driving to the church, and it was not sunrise yet. Sun, of course, rising at the east. And on the west, there was a sun rising. What was that? And we were asking ourselves, what's going on here? Now, the last 2 years, it appears at times like a dazzling light of many kilometers that covers a space horizon, especially in northern Greece, in the northeast Aegean, to a point where it often grows for a while and people are blinded and cannot see it. The pilots of the plane see it especially in night flights. The same goes for the light sent by the artificial satellites. NASA scientists have been shocked and troubled for many years. They consider it inexplicable and call it the light of the Virgin, quote unquote. An essential reason that St. Paisius was receiving visits to Mount Athos from leading scientists, especially by scientists from NASA. In the month of July 2019, satellite imagery seems to be expanding over European Turkey, and it is even brighter. Expatriate scientists who are related to NASA scientists not only assured about this, but also added something unprecedented, that this light, quote unquote, is uniform and it's not cut off. It comes over the Aegean and moves most of the time over the coast of Asia Minor and through eastern Thrace to the Dardanelles. Where it ends, near Istanbul, it does something like a brilliant wreath. When asked if there is relevant photographic material that substantiates the so-called, they said, today, anything that moves and receives specialized shots over the Strait of Bosporus and Dardanelles, Istanbul, and the coast of Asia Minor is considered top secret. Later, when the known problems of the area are over, then we can talk, unquote. Let's remember this article has been written by a Greek general. Now, the explanation of this phenomenon. This phenomenon is the same in both cases, the first time in 1453 and the second now in modern times, and in fact has started 30 years ago, but last year, 2019, is very bright. This is the mother boat with a diameter of 400 kilometers of the Galactic Federation of 13 galaxies of E Andromeda, from where Greeks come. I mean, this is ridiculous. How can you call this the light of the Virgin and then go into extraterrestrial Andromedans? I mean, I don't agree with this. Now, the Andromedan Olympians, seeing that the Greeks of Constantinople were divided, the greater part of the population did not want to fight and preferred the Ottomans, insulted, killing each other, and their city had become a city of sin and disgrace, decided on May 26 to abandon them, imposing punishment of about 5 centuries. But our heavenly brothers never left and are watching us. They will intervene at the right time. Today, the dark force is trembling, and that is why scientists and other NASA staff are shocked and troubled, as they know very well what awaits them. They also here says, please mention it's mandatory to mention the bibliography. It's from orthodoxia.gr, athensmagazine.gr, cyclopedia.gr, mlife365.blogspot, ufotruth.gr blogspot, and Viral Greece, EU, Orthodoxy GR, Athens Magazine GR. Okay, so I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.